When it comes to concrete, we've got you covered. RowPaint.com offers custom concrete coating services for your garage, business, warehouse, and more. And we do it in one day. We are your complete concrete coatings solution.
All right, what's going on? Welcome back to a special Father's Day weekend edition of what we hope is your favorite sports talk radio program, Idaho Sports Talk. We're Prater in the Ballgame. Prater, Father's Day weekend, you get to get spoiled. You get to be the big dad. You get the big piece of chicken. It's Father's Day. They celebrate you pretty well
There's a surprise plan for me on Sunday. I have no idea what's going on. So I would imagine something's brewing. Yes, I'm going to sneak away and play a little golf tomorrow and then hang out with the kids on Sunday and then figure out life after that.
This is our video segment of the program today. So appreciate everybody for watching on all forms of social media, part of our partnership with Bronco Nation News and BJ Rains, who is our current guest. And BJ, you're a father too. You got 2 kids. I know you still have a close relationship with your dad. Happy Father's Day weekend to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I mean, I'm in this business because of my dad. He's in this business too, almost 40 years now. So it's been pretty cool to, follow in his path. If I knew back then when I made this decision how little money is in this business, I may not have done the same thing. But I should have known, I guess. But no, it's been great. And having a resource like my dad to call about a story or a question or an interview, it's pretty cool. And to have 2 kids, 5 and 7 years old, that are both into sports as well is pretty cool. So life's good on that front.
You know, BJ, you and I've had a lot of conversations, mostly just about life, or not a lot about life, but mostly about sports and football in Boise State. But, my dad was a 30, 40-year media guy, and I'm in this business because of him, and he was my hero. I follow and I know of your dad and the impact that he's had on you. We didn't have a choice but to be here today, did we? Just because of our fathers and the impact they had on our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up at the old Busch Stadium. I knew that place better than my house because he'd let me tag along, and I'd get to go to spring training and got to do a lot of cool things. And I look back now, I'm like, I can't believe my dad would bring a 10-year-old with him or a 12-year-old with him and to sit in the Cardinals dugout, when he'd be interviewing Mark McGuire or something. I mean, it's pretty cool to think about. The one thing he's done that I haven't done is write a book. He's at 39 books he's written in his career. So he's written a lot of biographies, autobiographies, sports athletes. And so he covered the Cardinals on a daily basis, has been, was at Joe Carter's home run, all these World Series games, All-Star games. So I got a long way to go, but it has been pretty cool. And I kind of, knew at a very young age that I wanted to be around sports, and that path was not going to be as an athlete. So I had to find other ways to stay involved in sports and decided to write for the school paper in high school and then college and kind of built up. And very thankful that I've got my dad still around as a resource for me.
I'm very childish and very immature this way, but one of the greatest moments of my life was when my dad, he used to take me on the bus. He was a CSI basketball radio announcer for 30 plus years. And I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. And we were on a bus ride. It was me and the entire team. I was the only kid on the entire team. We were going to Logan to play a basketball game against Logan. I think back in the day, they had JV teams that would play junior college teams.
Yep.
And it's the first time I ever heard the F word. And I heard it like 9 times. And I couldn't stop giggling for like 3 days. And I went home and my mom says, "How was the trip?" And I said, "I learned the F word, Mom." And she was very mad, but I'll never forget that to this day. It was like one of the greatest moments of my life. Thank you, Dad.
Happy Father's Day. I love those stories. Appreciate you guys sharing those. We're going to let you, our listeners, share your stories in about an hour. But we have Rock Jocks. We got Touchdown for Tickets. We got JL Skinner. But right now, again, being joined with BJ Rains for our Bronco Nation News Report every Fridays. It's going to be an interesting summer. I want to see what type of season. I think there's a lot of interest, BJ, in what Austin Bolt is going to do. What's his role going to be? What type of statistical productivity is going to come with that? How are they going to use him? I guess that's kind of what his role will be. What are your thoughts on this kind of the big local product? Everybody's just been waiting to see what he's going to be able to do.
Yeah, and you're asking about him because this week we started a series at BroncoNationNews.com on the 25 biggest questions and storylines going in to the 2022 season. And one of our first questions earlier this week was, will this finally be the year that Austin Bolt contributes on offense, and what should be expected of him? And, had 2 chances on deep routes, incomplete passes on both. No career catches, but you look at what he did, as a high school senior, 30 plus touchdowns, 2,000 plus yards. I mean, the numbers were incredible. And you guys were there, I think, the day we talked to Hank Buckmeyer when he referred to him as a, quote, local legend. And I think it's just we've been waiting. Everyone in this town has been waiting. They couldn't figure out why, as a true freshman, he didn't make the impact. They tried to mess with him and put him at defensive end for a couple weeks, and they're moving him all over the field. I think finally receiver is the spot we all thought he should have been at all along. And so it took a couple years, but partially because I think he's ready, but partially because there's just a lack of proven depth at wide receiver. When you lose an Octavius Evans, you lose a Khalil Shakir. I do. I think this is the year Austin Bolt finally gets to contribute. And if you put the over-under at somewhere around 20 catches or so for this year, I'm not sure which way you guys would lean.
All right, let's keep the contribution factor going here. And as part of this series, you're also talking about the impact guys, the newcomers, the freshmen, the recruits. Who are the 5 incoming new guys that we really don't know their names yet beyond just seeing them on paper that are going to make an impact with this football team this fall?
Well, I came up, the question was 5, and then here I came up with 8. So, that's kind of what we do. But I mean, as you guys know, Cade Beresford, the left tackle, I think has a chance to be the biggest impact transfer. Tim Plow said as much himself that he was the biggest offseason acquisition they made. And just with everybody knows the struggles of the offensive line last year, to get a solid, transfer from the Pac-12 that you can plug in at tackle, I think Cade Beresford is going to be a huge addition to this team. I think, George Tarlas has a chance. Favorite of all of ours from the interviews we've done with him, coming over from Weber State, the local kid. I think he's got a chance to play. And I think Cortez Hogan's another defensive lineman from Snow College, was a top 50 junior college recruit in the country, according to ESPN. And you could throw in Devin Wright, Mississippi Gulf Coast College, was also a top 50 JUCO guy coming off the edge. So you think about losing Shane Irwin to medical retirement. All of a sudden, a guy like Devin Wright, George Tarlas potentially coming off the edge, see their roles increase a little bit. And then the 5th transfer would be Sam Vidlak, just because of what we've talked about with Taylon Green, which we may get to in a second, and some of the, lack of depth at quarterback, I guess, if Hank Buckmeyer were to go down. So those would be my 5. And then my 3 freshmen, my 3 incoming freshmen would be obviously Ashton Genty, the running back. We've heard all about him. Deshaun Misa, the 4-star linebacker, top 10, inside linebacker in the country, according to ESPN. And the fact that there is a linebacker spot available with Riley Wimpy gone. So I think Misa has a chance to play right away. And then, he's not a sexy name, but James Ferguson Reynolds, the punter from Australia, I think has a chance to win the job right away. It sounds like they're really intrigued by his style, and you don't spend the time and effort recruiting a kid from Australia if you don't see him having a chance to make an impact pretty early in his career.
BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News, the BNN Report, Fridays here on KTIK, Prater on the Ballgame. BJ, it seems like this schedule seems fairly conducive for some type of New Year's Six run. Like, I've seen Boise State get to New Year's Six bowl games when they've had a tougher schedule than what they have right now. I mean, Oregon State's the Power 5 team. You have BYU, but it is in Albertson Stadium. How are you forecasting what road bumps, blow-ups, landmines might be on this schedule that might prevent them from that type of New Year's Six just being in the discussion as the season goes on?
Well, I think we all think Boise State's going to be better this year, and I think one of the factors for that is the schedule is much more manageable, as you said. I mean, you think about all the hard games they had on the road last year, they're all at home this year. I mean, you think about having Utah State at home, BYU at home, San Diego State at home, Fresno State at home. I mean, that's monster to have all 4 of those games, 4 of your 5 or 6 toughest opponents of the season all on the blue. Now, we'll get to a question later in the series next week about, does that mean anything anymore? They lost 3 home games on the blue last year, so that's no longer a guaranteed win when you play these home games. At least it hasn't been the last couple of years. So you got to remember that too. But you feel better about those games being at home for sure. I mean, I think at Oregon State is certainly the swing game for me. If you can find a way to go up there, national TV, ESPN, win that Oregon State game week 1, you got a chance to be 4-0, rolling into some of those home games we've talked about, probably be back in the top 25. So, Oregon State, everyone says, they're a middle Pac-12 team, whatever. I mean, they made some big improvements last year, and I think that's going to be a much tougher game than some people realize and think about going into the season. But maybe at Air Force, maybe at Wyoming, just because especially the Wyoming game late November in Laramie, things can happen there. I mean, that's not an ideal date for that game. We've seen it snow up there the last couple of times they've played. Air Force is always a tricky team, and Boise State has not had a ton of success the last 7 or 8 years since I've been covering the team at the academy. So I think that's a tough game as well. But overall, I think it's a very manageable schedule this year when, you're going to UTEP, which, they ended up doing some things last year, but that's a winnable game. Certainly at Nevada is not the game that scares you now that they've lost some of their guys. So I think, at New Mexico certainly is an easy game. So I think the schedule sets up very nicely for them this year compared to last year.
BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News Report. Yesterday we did our live show at 9:00 and we talked about Steph Cobbs, who is next on your list. Is Steph Cobbs ready to become Boise State's #1 wide receiver? What say you, BJ Rains?
I think he is, but I mean, you're putting a lot of pressure on that guy because, behind him, they just really don't have much else. I mean, they badly need Steph Cobbs, and we had him at number 5 on the most important players on the entire team. And you could make an argument he should be even higher. I mean, if Steph Cobbs goes down early in the season with an injury, or if something happens, you have next to nothing proven at wide receiver. I mean, take Steph Cobbs out of the picture here, and you got Cutter and a whole bunch of other guys, and it could be scary. So he had 34 catches last year. I think around 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Boise State needs double that. They need 65, 70 catches out of Steph Cobbs. They need 1,000 yards out of Steph Cobbs, and they need 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. It's big shoes to fill, replacing a guy like Khalil Shakir. And Steph Cobbs, again, never seen it in my life. 1 punt return, and it lands him on the second team All Mountain West as the punter with 81-yard return. And so, but you wonder, he can be dynamic in the punt return game, but he's so, we have this discussion every year, but I think he's so important to the wide receiving group this year. How they use him on special teams is going to be interesting because they just cannot afford a Steph Cobbs injury. But if he stays healthy and plays 12 games, I think he did show us enough that he's ready to take a big step forward.
All right, BJ, last thing for us here, Talon Green and the use of him. We talked about it on your channel this morning, and just expand on it. You seem to think that there's going to be a package, there's going to be part of this game plan every week that involves Talon Green in some capacity.
Well, I'm sure at some point, going into the season, either on my show or your show, we'll do some sort of 3 bold predictions or something going into the season. And I'm going to live and die on the Talon Green projection here. And I could be dead wrong, and I probably will be, but I just have a feeling Talon Green's going to be heavily involved in the offense this year. I just for multiple reasons, but I just think he's too good to keep on the sidelines. I mean, again, I think I mentioned this a week or two ago, but someone inside the program told me that when they did the offseason speed testing a couple weeks ago, he's the second fastest player on the entire team, only to Austin Bolt. So you're talking about a 6'5" athlete like that. That's the second fastest player on the entire team. And you can't find a way to put him in there for a couple, plays here and there in a package at the goal line or something. I think they're going to find ways to use him because I think he helps them win. But I also think they're going to find ways to use him because they know if they want him starting in 2023, they need to keep him happy and get him out on the field.
PJ, enjoy Father's Day. Enjoy this weekend. Hopefully the weather is going to be spectacular, and appreciate you every Friday, everything you do in this town. You're the best, man. Love you, bud. Thanks.
Appreciate you guys as well. Take care.
BJ Rains, BNN report on Fridays. We have JL Skinner coming up in a couple of minutes. Prater, just a yes or no. Talon Green, do you see him maybe ever reminding you of Legadoo Nane?
That's a good one, Ballgame. That's a good one. I'm not quite sold on Talon Green like BJ Rains is. I have a feeling the biggest storyline of this football season, one of the biggest storylines of this season, will be at the end of the season, the future of Talon Green and what's next. Should he stay or should he go?
No question. How about JL Skinner? This guy, a future NFL football player. Love watching him on the blue. He's got a big weekend coming up and a chance to meet, greet, photo, autograph, all that good stuff. JL Skinner right here on Idaho Sports Talk when we come back. Prater in the Ballgame.